with another episode of Archaeology of Connecticut. Here is our state archaeologist, Sarah Sportman.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our May 2021 show of the Archaeology of Connecticut. I'm Connecticut State Archaeologist Sarah Sportman, and I'm here with my co-host Scott Brady, President of the Friends of the Office of State Archaeology. Tonight, we're pleased to welcome our special guest, Jim Bailey, a metal detectorist and amateur historian from Rhode Island. Tonight's show is going to focus on Jim's research on a number of late 17th century Arabian coins that have been found, primarily by metal detectorists at sites across southern New England. Last month, Jim's research on the coins began to receive national and international attention when a news story was published by the Boston Globe and picked up by outlets around the world. It's a truly New England story, and it involves all kinds of amazing things like pirates, treasure, one of the most notorious crimes of the 17th century, the trade in African captives. And it's also a story with ties to Connecticut archaeology. Two of the recovered coins are from Connecticut. One was found in Windsor and the other in Glastonbury. And the Glastonbury coin, which was found in 2018 during the Office of State Archaeology and FOSA excavations at the Hollister site, which is one of our long-term research projects that we've talked about before on the show, is the only one of the coins to date that's been found in an archaeological context. So when that coin was found, the late state archaeologist Brian Jones came across an academic article that Jim had written for the Journal of Early American Numismatics. Oh my God, I can't say it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It just wouldn't come out, which focuses on early American coins. He got in touch with Jim, and the Hollister coin was conclusively identified as being a 1692 silver comassee coin from Yemen. So with that kind of background, for anybody who hasn't caught the media coverage of this in the last couple of weeks, I'm going to get started with the show. So, Jim, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe give us a brief overview of, how you got started on this project from the time you found the first coin in 2014, getting it identified, and the path your research followed from there?
Sure. Just want to clarify that the story was actually covered by the Associated Press.
I'm sorry.
It's not a problem. The Boston Globe carried it, as did many papers throughout the country, and Bill Cole was instrumental in getting the story out because the Associated Press has a huge reach, and it was the response was enormous. It was really something. The first week or two. Once the story ran, was like kind of like as hectic for me as the day I got married. It's like a wedding that continues, that goes on for like a whole week. So it was a bit draining with interviews and stuff. But it was it was fantastic. I was very pleased that people were so fascinated by the story. But to answer your question, I've been involved in metal detecting all my adult life, and my emphasis was on the colonial period history, and it's been that way since, for the past 20 years now. That's what I wanted to focus on, which is, where the old world met the new world, and that's just a fantastic period. A lot of people look at history as, the Mayflower, and then they skip right over everything to, July 4th, 1776. It's so much more. There's so many things that went on. It's just a fantastic period of our history, and I wanted to discover as much as I could, and it's been a wonderful experience. And as it relates to this one most unusual coin, it began at Sweetberry Farm, which is located in Middletown, Rhode Island, which is it actually used to be part of Newport. Middletown was incorporated as a town to itself. I believe it was 1734. So, but Aquidneck Island is the largest of the islands in Narragansett Bay in Rhode Island, and I first visited the farm back in 2014, and I had used a British map from a cartographer for the British named Charles Blaskowitz, and he indicated there was a house on the property where today nothing stands but fields. My first visit to the site, I thought that maybe he might be crazy or a drunkard because I couldn't find anything for the first hour. And then lo and behold, I pulled up this intact shoe buckle with applied silver facing on one side, and from there it was musket balls and King George, half-pence coins, and then they couldn't get rid of me, and they've been dealing with me ever since. And I can't thank them enough because, it's incredible. This story, April 1st, it went around the world. The story ran all over the world, and it began with them giving me permission. And there's been a lot of other people that are involved in this whole process.
Great. So, apart from the colonial materials that you were finding at Sweetberry Farm, what was the coin you found that kind of sent you on this journey?
Well, it's funny. I can't. I had been going to the site for 2 years, and initially, the map dated from 1778, so I figured it was a solid 18th century site. And then in 2006, I found an oak tree shilling, which was dated. I mean, the date on the coin is 1652, but that whole series of Massachusetts silver coins is 4 different types. They were minted from 1652 to 1682, and my coin should have dated somewhere around 1667. And that was the first indication that this was not just this was a far older site than I thought. And from there I started to find older stuff. Saddle leather mounts and bridle bosses and buttons and buckles that told me that clearly it was a 17th century site. And I stayed at it and found a couple of Spanish cobs, small silver coins. And then, in 2014, I had actually been on another site on the island and hadn't found much and figured I'd go for a Hail Mary pass and visit my old faithful site at Sweetberry Farm, and it produced in a big way. It turned up this Arabian silver coin, and I was amazed when I found it.
Now, when you found it, are you a coin guy? Did you have some idea of what it was when you found it, or was it like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, so when it comes to U.S. coins and more so colonial coins, I can just about identify any coin you put in front of me that's from the colonial period, and there's a enormous amount of variety of these coins. There's really an exciting part of numismatics to collect these colonial coins. There's just so much variety, and you can have one coin. For instance, in the early Confederation period, you had New Jersey was minting these copper coins that were equivalent to an English half-pence. And in 1 year alone, they had like 120 different varieties because there were so many individual dyes that went into making these coins. It's just a fantastic area of study. But anyway, when I found this coin, it was funny because you never clean a coin out in the field, like just take it and start wiping it on your pants to get the dirt off. You want to be careful, and you don't want to damage the coin or any artifact. You've got to go really easy. And I had pulled it out of a plug that was probably about 9 inches deep, 10 inches deep. And it was on when I pulled out the plug and flipped it over. It was on the bottom of the plug reversed. I thought it was actually a small piece of like lithic material, like a little piece of slate. But I put my pinpoint on it, and sure enough, it came off, and it was a hammered silver coin. And I figured it was going to be a Massachusetts Bay coin. As I mentioned before, I had found an oak tree. It would be one of those coins, a smaller denomination, or perhaps a Spanish coin. But I couldn't tell, so I ran to my car, and I grabbed I had a water bottle with me. And just like The Three Stooges with the seltzer squirting someone in the face. I doused the coin with water, and I had actually run into the owner of the property, Jan Eckhart, and I was running from my car to get this water, and I said, hey, I just pulled up this coin. You got to come with me. And I grabbed my water. We jumped in his truck. We drove down. I left it right there in situ on top of this plug, and I doused it with water, and lo and behold, there's all this Arabic script all over the coin. And I knew right then and there what it was. I didn't know the exact date. I didn't know exactly where the coin had originated from or where it was minted, but I knew two things. I knew it was silver. I knew it was three things. I knew it was silver, it was an early hemorrhage coin, and it was Arabic. And that's all I needed to know to make this connection to Red Sea piracy. I had known enough. I had done my research. I knew my history that Newport had been a base for piracy that was waged out in the Red Sea in the late 17th century. You know, the good people at Walt Disney would have us think that pirates were just based out of the Caribbean, but they did not. They were ruthless and they were criminals. But you'd have to, when it came to the audacity and the dare-do-all seamanship that they had, it was quite impressive at this time to do what they did, which was to leave New England and go sail southeast, go around the Horn of Africa, go around the southern end of Africa, around the Horn, or past Madagascar, around the Horn, and into the Red Sea. It was impressive what they did, and so it was Newport, New York, Philadelphia. A lot of people don't know it, but back then, the colonists were bases for piracy. And at the time, we were involved in King William's War. We were fighting the French. And you would issue, you could be issued if you had a ship and you had men and you had some cannons, you could be issued a privateer's commission to wage war against the French. It was a license to steal as long as you were stealing from the French. But everybody knew, or most of the people knew, that the money wasn't in attacking these French fishing vessels up in off the coast of Nova Scotia and such. The money was in the Red Sea, and it was all privateer commission was issued with a wink and a nod, and off to the Red Sea they went.
Now, for the listeners who haven't seen this coin, could you kind of describe it? I was impressed with the tininess of it. It's a very small coin. Yeah.
There's so many instances where you see something, the physical evidence and historical documentation comes together and fits so well that it's really a tremendous sense of wonder to compare the two. So the coin weighs it's 12 grains of silver, and a dime in comparison, I believe, is about 30 grains. So it's roughly 1/3 the weight of a dime in your pocket or your purse, and it's about slightly the size of a dime. But it's much thinner. It's as thin as a razor. And it's completely covered in Arabic script. Islam at the time did not allow any type of imagery on their coins. So there's nothing but Arabic script. And it's the same with all the coins that have been recovered to date. And at the time of the article coming out, the AP, we had 16 coins in total, all found in southern New England. 2 in Connecticut, 4 in Rhode Island, and the other 10 were found in Massachusetts. And, so you have this coin that's covered in Arabic script, and, I knew it was, I had my theory that this is connected to Red Sea piracy, but I have to prove it. And that's when it really was. That was a bit of a challenge. That was one of the harder parts of, getting into it was actually getting an identification on this coin, because coins from Yemen in the late 17th century there's a pretty narrow field of experts. And unfortunately, I had gotten in touch with one of them, and his name is Steve Album, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak of Steve, because without his expertise, his knowledge, there wouldn't be a story. Because the dating on these coins are crucial. If the coin's dated from 1720, 1730, you're out of luck for this theory, because the period of Red Sea piracy basically went from the early 1690s to the early 1700s. There was a brief resurgence in the 1720s. So the coins have to date from a very specific period, and with Steve's help, and he's an expert. He's in Santa Rosa, California. He's a specialist on Islamic coins, and I had gotten him photos of the coin and got him on the phone, and he looked at it, and he deciphered it for me, and it dated to 1693. There isn't many people that can identify these coins, and he's identified 16 of the coins for me to date. We actually have a couple more that, because of the article, a couple more have come to light, and we'll see where the total count goes from here.
Are they still, the new ones, still Southern New England finds?
So the article mentioned one coin that was found in the Carolinas. I believe it was North Carolina. That didn't count the six. That was in addition to the 16. So the 16 coins that were mentioned in the article were all found in Southern New England, which is a very, very concentrated area. Now the new ones, we have possibly two more coins in Massachusetts, and we have another one in that popped up in Maryland. So we'll now I have to get the dating confirmed on these coins. Nothing's until the dating has been confirmed. I should say one has been dated already, and that one checked out. And it's amazing to me, because this is some of the stuff that you didn't get to cover in the space of the AP article. So none of the coins can be dated after 1695, which is when Henry Every captured the Gunsway, and that's critical. Obviously, if you have a coin from 1698, you can't count it. It can't be connected to the Gunsway, just like you couldn't have a coin in your pocket right now from 2023. So all 16 coins, either by the reign of the issuing authority. In that case, that was usually a series of imams that ruled in Yemen, and all the coins by their reign fell within the year 1695. Now there's there's 9 coins, total of 9, or is it 7? About half. We'll call it at half. I know one thing: by the time we're done, the majority of the coins are going to have exact dates. But right now, what we have is, hold on one second, is I don't want to give your audience the right answer. But it's 5 coins right now have exact dates, and they date from 1691 to 95. Hold on, it's right in front of me. Yeah, here it is right here. So it's, 7 out of the 16. So have exact dates. So we have 2 coins from 1691, 3 coins from 1692, 1 coin from 1693, 1 coin from 1694, and then Henry Every captures the Gunsway in 1695. So the dating on these coins correlates exceedingly well with the capture of the Gunsway.
So for our listeners who aren't familiar with that history, can you tell us a little bit about Henry Every and the attack on the Gunsway?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. So Henry Every is involved in the Spanish expedition. He's off the coast of Spain. England and Spain, for once, were not at war. They were allies at the time, and there was an expedition. It was a business venture to get involved in some trading and actually salvage some Spanish wrecks at the time. Henry Every was first mate aboard one of the ships, and there was problem with paperwork, with clearing to go on their expedition. Some paperwork that was tied up with the owners of the venture who were financing it all, and a lot of guys they weren't getting paid, and Henry Every led a mutiny. A successful mutiny, but is there any other kind of mutiny? And he found himself, when you lead a mutiny, you tend to be promoted to captain. So the ship was named the Charles II. They renamed it the Fancy, and off they went to the Red Sea. When they arrived at in the area of the Mandeb Strait, that's the mouth of the Red Sea where it enters the Arabian Sea, he met up with a total of five ships from the American colonies, one of whom was the Amity, Captain Thomas II, and he was one of the earliest and best-known pirates, and it was his second voyage to the Red Sea. And four of the five ships had come from Rhode Island because Thomas II, when he had come back from his first voyage and made his fortune, you can believe when he went back for a second time, he had lots of company, everybody wanting to get in on the action. And they were waiting for the Pilgrim Fleet. The Pilgrim Fleet was the Mughals of modern-day India. They had gone to Mecca for Hajj. That's for pilgrimage. That's the Muslim. That's the journey of for those of the Islamic faith to visit the holy sites in Mecca. But for the Mughals of India, it was also a business trip, and the Mughals had the biggest manufacturing economy in the world at the time, and they did it with cotton. Cotton was they were the ones that were selling cotton throughout the world, and cotton was becoming a big thing. People back in England didn't have to wear, hot, uncomfortable wool. They could wear nice, light cotton clothing, and if you wanted it, you had to get through the Mughals. The one thing the Mughals didn't have in India was a domestic source of gold and silver that they could to lubricate the wheels of their massive economy. So it was a cash and carry business, and for the Mughals, it wasn't just Hajj wasn't just a religious obligation; it was a business trip. And when they left India, their ships were packed. The Pilgrim Fleet was packed with cotton, which they sold at ports along the Red Sea. The biggest one of which was the port of Mocha. Mocha at the time was in Yemen, and it was also where they had the monopoly on coffee beans at the time. So when you go to Dunkin' Donuts tomorrow or Starbucks and you hear about Mocha this and Mocha that, I don't drink coffee myself, but they're actually referring to Mocha in Yemen. Anyway, the Mughals, on completing Hajj, just before they left the Red Sea, they stopped in Mocha at Yemen and sold off the bulk of their cotton exports for gold and silver. And when they came out of the Mandeb Strait, there was Henry Every and 5 other pirate ships waiting for them. And the Mughal fleet sailed right on by. Someone was not paying attention. They probably passed in the night. And you could clear, from Mocha, you could clear the Mandeb Strait in one day. That's something I recently found while doing my research. And they sailed straight across the Arabian Sea, and we're pretty close to making it home. And the pirates, meanwhile, they had found out the next morning they had captured a local trading vessel, and the captain was probably pleaded with them, saying, "Oh, why do you bother me? Why did you not attack the Pilgrim Fleet? I am just a poor fisherman." After which, they realized what had happened, and they took off in pursuit. And they captured one ship off the coast of India, and they were basically pillaging the ship for a whole day when the Gunsway came into view. And that was the flagship of the Pilgrim Fleet, and the owner of the gunsway was none other than Aurangzeb, and he was the emperor of the Mughals, and they went for it. They went for it. It was at the time. By that time, it was only Henry Every aboard the Fancy and 2 ships from Rhode Island, the Pearl and the Portsmouth Adventure. And the Portsmouth Adventure stood off. They were just overawed. They were awed by the size of the gunsway, which was a massive, massive ship. Carried 1,300 passengers, 80 cannon, 500 musketeers, and none of that mattered to Henry Every, though. He got in fast and close, and it was such a huge vessel that they couldn't bring their guns to bear down on the Fancy. And from my research, they 11 broadsides is all it took. And there's other accounts of the Mughals having a cannon that exploded on their deck, killing a number of the crew, and that there was a lucky shot from the Fancy, which did extensive damage to their main mast. So the ship was largely crippled. Henry Every's men went aboard, and they took the vessel. And with it, this is what's fantastic. So they took the vessel. There's what they did is in attacking the Mughals. When the victims got back to Surat, and that was the port of the Pilgrim fleet, there was a big uproar, and they were like, "Well, who did this to you?" And they were like, "Well, a bunch of Englishmen did." So what did they do? Well, the pirates are long gone, but they marched down to the local office of the East Indies Company. We have a bunch of Englishmen standing around trying to make their fortunes in the export of cotton and other goods, and they were quite upset. They had to they were locked inside their own factory, and for their own safety, and they had to write home to England and basically told the King's men and the Board of Trade and everybody would listen that if you don't do something, we're going to lose our trade rights. We're going to get kicked out of this country, and so that was a big problem for the English, which is why they put a 500-pound bounty for the capture of Henry Every, and along with his accomplices, there were actually 25 men enlisted accomplices, and there was 50 pounds each for their reward. Now we're talking about a time where an average sailor earned 18 pounds a year. So you can imagine 500 pounds is like Powerball.
Yeah.
You've got no worries. If you can drop a dime on Henry Every and get him apprehended, you're going to be all set for life. It was a big problem. And Henry Every, he split him and his crew, and they went to the Mascarean Islands. And they picked up a bunch of slaves, and they later showed up in the Bahamas and presented themselves as interloping slave traders. At the time, the slave trade, the Royal African Company dominated the West African slave trade. It was a monopoly, but there were interlopers that would go to East Africa and obtain slaves in Madagascar and some of the other islands. And they presented themselves as slave traders, and the governor, Nicholas Trott, he knew he knew what they were all about. He knew that they were engaged in piracy, but they passed around the collection plate, and everybody chipped in, pieces of 8, and Captain Henry Every, being a good captain, he chipped in a double share. And it's like Wheel of Fortune. They threw in the boat, the guns. They gave them everything except their plunder. And they gave them the most important thing. They gave them deniable plausibility, because when the King's people came, and they came to investigate, well, Trott says, "Well, what do you want from me? I mean, they told me they were interloping slave traders, and who am I to doubt them?" And at the time, the Bahamas, there was talk of them being attacked by the French. And he said, "What am I?" And plus, he only had 70 men, adult men on the island. How is he going to oppose, 113 pirates aboard a large pirate ship, which carried, I forget how many guns they carried, I think they carried 46 guns at the time.
So, how did they end up? How does the story kind of circle back to New England?
Well, here's the thing. So when Henry Every departs from India, he acquired. He had the lion's share of the plunder from the Gunsway. There was 2 ships that were with him. One of them was the Pearl, and the Pearl got involved in the fight. And the problem is they had so much silver that it was actually difficult. They actually had almost too much. They were too successful because the amount of silver was just staggering. But there was also gold. And if you're talking about 200 pounds sterling to carry around on your person, it's a lot easier to make do with gold coins or gold species rather than silver. So the pirates aboard the Fancy and the Pearl came to an arrangement, and they exchanged silver for gold. Well, what the men of Henry Every's men aboard the Fancy realized is that the guys from Rhode Island, they had clipped the edges of the gold coins, which was something that you did back then because coins back then were not perfectly round. They were not milled. So they shaved the edges. And that was violating the terms to share and share alike. So they took everything except for they gave them 2,000 pieces of 8 to basically buy provisions so they could start over. But they lost their shares. It's fascinating, but this is all in the primary historical documents bear all this out. And it's amazing to read all the details because a number of these pirates were captured. But there was a second ship, the Portsmouth Adventure, and it's funny because he did not get in. The captain of the Portsmouth Adventure did not get in the fight, and for some reason, though, I know the reason. The captain of the Portsmouth Adventure and 4 men left the Portsmouth Adventure. They had sat out the fight. They didn't get involved. They didn't have a share. But Henry Every winds up taking 5 of these guys off the Portsmouth Adventure, and they wind up taking Henry Every. They were basically the wheelmen. I say it a lot of time. I explain to people, it's no different than it is today. When you rob a bank, you're one of the most important parts of the crew is your wheelman, right? He's the guy who sits in the car and waits for everybody to come running out with their bags of money. Well, Joseph Farrow was the captain of the Portsmouth Adventure, and 4 of his men were selected as wheelmen. They were hired to get Henry Every and his accomplices to points unknown, because we'll find them in the narrative. I have a book coming out, so look for that book to be coming out next year. It's gonna detail all of this. But it's something that was missed in a lot of the accounts. And as I said, they wound up acquiring slaves, and they arrived in the Bahamas on April 1st. And Nicholas Trott, in his sworn testimony, states that they arrived. There was 113 men plus slaves. Now, Bahamas at the time was not. Did not have a plantation-based economy like you might have in Barbados or Jamaica. So there was nothing. There was nothing to do with these slaves for Nicholas Trott. They were a liability if anybody was going to come to investigate. Which is why they had the Fancy was scuttled, and the pirates purchased 2 ships, 2 getaway vehicles. One was called the Isaac, one was called the Seaflower. Now, Henry Every arrives in the Bahamas on April 30th, and he arrives in Ireland 3rd week of June. And the ship he was aboard was called the Seaflower. Well, in late May, the ship Seaflower arrives in Newport, Rhode Island, carrying slaves for sale. They had about 47 slaves, of which they only sold 15. and the rest were transported to Boston overland, where the ship's owners supposedly lived. So basically, you have Henry Every and his men aboard the Seaflower. They had these slaves that Nicholas Trott says, you can't leave these slaves with here, you got to take them with you. And you had these 5 guys that were taken with him from the Portsmouth Adventure that were hired wheels, that were all from Rhode Island. So the guys were taking them, they were basically, as I said, wheelmen. That, or you have basically two ships, 2 slave ships, sailing at the same time in the same waters with the same exact name, the Seaflower.
Is there an idea of the value of this treasure? I mean, and what kind of shares we're talking about for these sailors?
Sure. So estimates vary. Pirates, some of the pirates captured were always they would always underestimate their winnings, and they would always say that they were never really involved in the plundering of the ship. They were forced men, and whatever they got, they acquired because they were excellent gamblers at cards or dice, or they were nursemaids, so on and so forth. Or my shipmate died and he left this to me, this 500 pounds in Arabian, gold. It's the estimates vary, but frequently what we find is it's 1,000 pounds per sterling per man. There's 180 men on board. The Mughals estimated the loss at 600,000 pounds. That's a contender for the largest piracy heist in history. Some say it was more like 200,000 pounds. There was an English merchant in Surat at the time who estimated the value at 350,000 pounds. So but you're talking again about a time when, a sailor made 18 pounds a year, and now you're talking about 1,000 pounds sterling. One thing I should have mentioned is we were talking about the coins. One of the pirates describes them going down into the hold of the Gunsway, where they made their voyage, meaning that they recovered their earnings, and he remarked that it was all in baskets, that the bullion was in baskets, which I thought was very odd, because when you look back at the Spanish, with everybody's familiar with the Piece of 8, which is the thing of pirate law, pirates and pieces of 8 and all of that, Treasure Island. And the Piece of 8 is actually the American dollar is derived from the Piece of 8. It's a large, heavy silver coin. But these coins, and the pieces of 8 were transported in iron-bound chest. And even working wrecks, salvaging of wrecks off Florida, they've found some of these chests where, of course, the wood's all gone, but they're in the shape of chest, and they're all pieces of 8 that are oxidized and congealed into one, rectangular mass. But the recovery of these, the removal of these coins in baskets suggests that these were, low denomination, lightweight coins, which is exactly what we've been finding. The other thing, too, is you've got to remember, as I said, none of the coins date after 1695. 7 of the 16 so far. There'll be a couple more we'll be adding to the population, but 7 of the coins date to 1691 to 1694. And more importantly, of the 16 coins, 14 are from Yemen, which is where the Gunsway sold off its exports of cotton in exchange for silver and gold. So the evidence is substantial. There's 2 other coins, and those are Ottoman Aki coins. They're Turkish coins from provinces along the Red Sea. One actually was in from Cairo, Egypt, and that was found I think in Middleborough, Massachusetts, which is just amazing to me that these coins were circulating that far. It's fantastic stuff. It really is.
Yeah. So in terms of the coins, I'm really curious about this because as an historical archaeologist, I've dug at a lot of domestic sites. You almost always find a few coins, right, at colonial sites. Not tons of them, but we know that coinage itself was a rare commodity kind of in colonial New England, right? There was a problem with coinage, which is why there were a lot of Spanish dollars in circulation and people relied on wampum and barter for trade and things like that because it was really hard to get coinage. So I guess my question is, we found so many of these and they're so small and potentially fragile coins. Like, how much of these coins do you think were really in circulation for, to have already been able to find this number of them?
Well, it's funny because, as a detectorist, I can tell you that obviously the most common, if you're going to find a silver coin from the colonial period, it's typically going to be a Spanish coin. And those coins, the Spanish real, they circulated all over the world. And after that, it's amazing because people will ask me, what kind of coins and stuff, and you'll say Spanish, and they're surprised, but they don't understand that the Spanish were here first. I mean, and you had the conquistadors, and the Spanish held territory. I mean, Potosi in Peru was just a mountain of silver, and they're surprised. But it's funny. I don't think I've only known of like one or two people to find an English silver coin. That speaks to mercantilism, that the colonies, primary purpose was to take care of the mother country. And all the coinage was constantly leaving the colonies and going back to Mother England, and from Mother England it would go to the Mughals. And then once in a great while, the pirates would swipe it, and it would come back to the colonies. So it's really amazing to take into consideration how the money moved around. But there was. You would think there were a lot of these coins. After Spanish silver would probably be the Massachusetts Bay Colony coins, the pine tree, the oak tree coins, and then I would think that right now, if I had to do a study of all the silver coins being found, I do believe Sarah, it's an excellent point. Is probably these comassee coins would be the third most common counted silver coin of the 17th century, and that speaks a lot, and I can tell you that we're pretty confident that, it was still these coins are referred to in a proclamation by King William for the capture of Henry Every, that these pirates can probably be known by possessing, Persian and Indian coins of gold and silver. So, it could be troublesome, but most of the people in the colonies really did not give a hoot about, the king's worries and stuff. And it's a period of time where, the people in the colonies, they were becoming more American and less British, and they did not care about about the English worries. They were on the very edge of a rising British Empire, and they had their own concerns and their own worries, and they were going to take care of themselves.
Yeah,
it's funny you say that. I'm sorry. It's funny you say that because archaeologically we find materials that should be made to a British standard so that they could be taxed properly. I'm thinking of just like bricks, for example. And it's obvious that the people here in the colonies are making bricks whatever size and shape that they want, and probably doing it that way so they don't have to pay the tax on it to the crown.
Yeah.
So it's just a continuation of that, to some extent.
Yeah, I think it's
Sweetberry Farm. The material, the artifacts I found at Sweetberry Farm is fantastic because it's typical of that conflict that was going on. Because in the same field, I've dug up, this 1693 silver comassee, which obviously, This is plunder from attacking one of England's major trading partners that was making England into the empire it was going to become. In the same field, I've also found a cloth seal for wool from the 1680s. And I've also found, this is fantastic, it's a broken stoneware fragment, but it has an image of Mary from William and Mary. And, it's her husband has this proclamation for the capture of these guys carrying these coins. I've got a fragment with her face on it in the coin. And it's just so interesting to me to see. We were way back when we were doing our own thing, and that would continue. And eventually, during the French and Indian War, when it came time to chip in more towards maintaining the status quo and stuff, we put our foot down, and it's fascinating because in doing the research, there were some Crown officials that were sent over to the colonies to investigate this, and one of them said that he could not convict a cockroach in the courtroom, and I believe it was the Bahamas, or it might have been Bermuda, and I just love reading that because it's just like it really shows that the people's humanity, that they were just like us back then, and it's just fantastic stuff.
So now we get this crew gets back to Rhode Island, gets off the boat, and then what happens to them? Do we have any ideas where they went or who they became, or were any of them ever captured or brought to justice, so to speak?
So one of them, as I said, there were five individuals. There was Captain Joseph Farrow. I can't give that away.
Okay.
I'll have to get the book.
Have to buy the book?
But I found him. I did find him, and when the book comes out, you'll know where he went, and it's fascinating. We've found. I'll tell you. We've found. There were the captain and four individuals. I know where the captain went. Thomas Jones is another one. He's a fascinating character because I mentioned this recently, so I'll just go into it. One of the pirates, not from the Portsmouth Adventure, but this was from Henry Every's crew. His name was William Downes. Okay, so William Downes is one of the pirates. In 1698, they have him locked up in jail in Newport. Okay. For suspicion of piracy, okay? Now, he's listed in the proclamation to Henry Every for his capture. He's one of the guys, one of 25 guys, his name is listed right in the proclamation. And what happens to him? He winds up escaping. And it was apparently with the connivance of the local sheriff. And the sheriff was removed from office. And they even say, I believe it says in the records, that it was upon when he went out to ease himself, he escaped. Now, you might say to yourself, okay, well, was the sheriff really corrupt? Well, the sheriff's daughter was married to Thomas Jones, one of the four guys with the captain who came back early from the Portsmouth Adventure, one of the hired wheelmen from Henry Every. And he winds up going to Long Island with the sheriff's daughter. So yeah, we've tracked down a bunch of them. And Sarah, are you familiar with Richard Smithsend?
Yeah, I've read a little bit about him because he ended up in Glastonbury, right? Exactly.
And that to me is another fascinating thing. There were some of the crew. We've got my research tells me that these individuals. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry. Richard Smithsend was one of Henry Every's crew. And the primary source documents show him and a bunch of others coming ashore on Fisher's Island. And I had done my research, and to me it was fascinating to find out that of all the places he could have gone in the American colonies, he winds up going to Glastonbury, where one of these coins was found. and another one was found in Windsor as well. The gentleman who found the one in Windsor, he was in my 2017 study. He's probably listening right now. His name is Bob Ellis, and he's a wonderful person. He's been a detectorist for a long, long time. And he had found the coin. He didn't know what it was. And when I started talking to him about it, he said, I think I might have one of those coins. So he wound up coming to a show that we have for my detecting club. It's the Silver Sea Treasure Seekers out of Taunton. And he let me have the coin to take pictures, and then he wouldn't take the coin back. He said, you keep it. And that's just the kind of guy he is. And so, yeah, he's wonderful. And the thing is, too, is I want to mention, it's amazing to me the age we live in, because, we have Facebook, and we have these forums and stuff. So I can post something, and then someone can say, hey, look, I think I found something like that. And they can send me pictures, and I can send it to Steve Album, we can get it identified. And it's this network that is recovering this history, because for 325 years, the narrative has been that Henry Every departed from the Bahamas and went straight to Ireland. And these coins, the research following these coins will prove otherwise, and has proven otherwise, and it will be expanded on it in great detail in the book. But we have multiple primary source documents that will change the history, and it's changing the last chapter in one of probably the most notorious piracy in history.
So we only have a few minutes left, and I feel like we can talk about pirates forever.
It goes by too fast.
I know. But so, for the last 2 minutes, I kind of want to talk a little bit about, metal detectorists and archaeologists. We have kind of a traditionally fraught relationship, and kind of, a perception maybe that a lot of metal detectorists are in it to make money, or to just find things and keep them in a box. But, can you kind of just expand a little bit on, does a search for history drive a lot of people? Sometimes
I'll reach out to an archaeologist by email or phone, and I'll say, so I'm a metal detectorist, and I'll tell them, and I'm not evil. That's what I usually will tell them. And I think that there should be more collaboration. I think that most of us want the same thing, and that's to recover this history and the stories they tell us. There are a few detectorists, I'm sure, that think that are in this mistakenly in this for the money, because they will find otherwise very, very soon. You're better off to work part-time at Walmart and take your paycheck and put it in the stock market.
Yeah. I was going to say, you got to find an awful lot of zinc pennies to pay for a modern-day metal detector.
Yeah. But we have a lot of people that are very knowledgeable and very passionate, and I think there should be collaboration, because we're all dealing with the same thing, and I know there's constraints for archaeologists. There's always funding is an issue. I know a number of sites that may not get ever investigated. In development, I've seen too many sites. I've been going to Newport for many, many years, and over time, I've seen field after field after field be turned into residential developments. And once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and I'm hopeful, because I think over the last 5 or 6 years in particular, I've seen that relationship between metal detectorists and archaeologists getting better. There's
at a minimum, someone should establish some type of database where someone can provide pictures of what they found, possibly where they found it, information that might establish some context for the site. So this stuff can stop being recorded, and the detectorists will have the option of, bringing in some person and disclosing where this site is, if it's deemed, significant. I'll give you, for instance, I searched a site a number of 4 or 5 years ago that is now a residential development, and from that site I found a pewter trade pipe, a Narragansett-made pewter trade pipe, intact, complete, from the 17th century. And it's fantastic. I've done the research. I know there's only like 40 specimens or so that are out there, and a lot of them are fragmented. This is an intact pewter trade pipe, and that, if I hadn't recovered that, that would be underneath someone's driveway right now. So, we've got to look at the big picture.
Yeah, well, let's hope that we can all kind of work towards more collaboration, because I think that there are two communities that could have a productive relationship working together.
Kevin McBride, Dr. Kevin McBride from UConn, has been at the forefront of that. He's ahead of his times, and
he's been on the show and talked about how important the hobbyists, the metal detectorists, have been to his research.
Yeah, because during the contact period, the Native Americans, 12,000 years of using lithic material went out the window in a generation or two, and they switched to brass and iron for their weapons, for their tools. And Kevin's knowledgeable enough to know that if he wants to recover these materials, metal detecting is the way to go, because I've done contract archaeology. I know what it's like to dig test pits, and I know with metal detecting you can cover ground a whole lot faster, and that's the name of the game. As long as it's done correctly, and obviously everything has to be recorded.
Hey, we have a bunch of comments that have come in. The most recent one, and excellent show. Thank you, James Bailey. Kevin McBride uses metal detectorists. We had others saying what a great program it is. I'm sure all of these people are going to want to pick up the book. How can we promote it? What website? How can people find, follow, and be a part of all things, and make sure that they get a copy of that book?
Let's see. I'm going to give you my email address, because right now I'm working on chapter 1. Is that okay?
It's going to be a while.
I don't. It's just like I said, I haven't slept much ever since the story broke. But my email address is jbailey, BAILEY, 1652 @gmail.com.
Perfect. And while we're at it, how about the Friends of the Office of State Archaeology, and also Sarah? How can people find, follow, and be a part of your worlds?
Yeah, for the Friends of the Office of State Archaeology, we have our website, FOSA, FOSA-CT.org, and you can also follow us on Facebook.
And the Office of State Archaeology has a website, osa.uconn.edu, and we also have a Facebook page where you can follow along with our excavations and some of the other stuff that we've been doing.
See, I have website envy now.
Well, guys, this was absolutely perfect, and we want to thank our listeners for sending in the comments. And if you missed any part of this and want to listen again, it'll be loaded into our Anytime Listening archive just in a few hours, so you can check it out shortly. Sarah, thanks so much.
Thank you. See you next month.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Great show.
Have a good
Yeah,
day.
thanks.